Please note, this is and will probably be the biggest project I'll ever do for a YouTube video. And since I'm a dumb stupid kid, my analytical prowess and editing abilities are admittedly not the best, so there are guaranteed to be errors. Despite me thoroughly looking through for any and all information, I am bound to still have missed or got a few bits of information wrong. So if I missed any information or got any information wrong, please correct me in the comments section. Thank you, and have a great day. Most science fiction and fantasy franchises, such as the Star Wars, MCU, Transformers, and Godzilla franchises have always had merchandise on the side to sell and make a little extra profit from fans, such as stickers, posters, mugs, clothing, statues, and the primary topic of this video, figures. And the Jurassic Park franchise is no exception to the merchandise treatment, considering it is one of the highest grossing science fiction franchises of all time. The Jurassic Park franchise has an extensive history with its merchandise, especially its toys. From the first Kenner toy series some fans still consider the best Jurassic Park toy series to date, to the experimental and perplexing Chaos Effect toy series that almost came along with an animated show, to the horrendous Jurassic World Hasbro toy series that disappointed all of us. And today, we're going to be covering the entirety of the most recent and arguably best Jurassic Park toy series in Jurassic Park's history, Mattel's Jurassic World toy series. But before I get into that, I'll cover Jurassic Park's history with its toys in order to understand as to how we got to Mattel acquiring the license to Jurassic World, and to set a foundation for comparing the toy series of the past against each other, and then against the Mattel Jurassic World series later. When Jurassic Park was released in 1993, it dominated the box office charts, being the highest grossing film of all time for nearly 4 years after its run. So making toys for dinosaurs as kids to play with was a no-brainer. So Universal gave Kenner the rights to the Jurassic Park license in order to make toys. And so Kenner's Jurassic Park Series 1, loosely based on the first film, was created. And these toys were released alongside the film. These figures were loved by kids and fans alike. The sculpts were well done. In fact, some of the models used for the figures, such as the Red Tyrannosaur, were actually based on the Sam Winston school models and maquettes used for the actual film. The action features and mechanics were great, although nowadays most of the figures in this series don't work well due to aging. And the strong rubber material used for a decent portion of the figures in this series is considered to be one of the best parts about this series. Not only did the rubber make the dinosaurs have a nice real feel to them, but it also helped these figures stand the test of time. And figures from this series that are still in packaging or in mint condition can go for up to a few $100s on places like eBay. Now we fast forward to 1997, and the long-awaited sequel to Jurassic Park came out, The Lost World. While this film didn't make as much money or was as well received critically as its predecessor, the film still managed to break records, being the highest grossing sequel film of all time for a little while after its run. Since Kenner did a really good job with Jurassic Park back in 1993, they were allowed to keep the rights to the Jurassic Park license to make toys to come along with the second film. So Kenner's Jurassic Park Series 2, based on The Lost World, is created and again released alongside the film. And Kenner did just as, if not an even better job with these figures than their first time making them, as every aspect of quality from the first series remained, and some were even further improved upon, such as Series 2 having expanded to be twice as big as the original series, including more species and general variation, and fans yet again loved these figures. But that wasn't all. After Series 2, Kenner came out with a very strange and unique series of figures, the Jurassic Park Chaos Effect toy series. Aside from the overall aspects of quality, which are still generally on par with the previous toy series, the most notable thing about the Chaos Effect series was that it was one of the very first times we saw hybrids officially being shown in the entirety of the Jurassic Park franchise, and the toy series was even going to have its own animated TV show based on it. However, after only 2 human figures, some hybrid dinosaurs, and a few repaints were released, the Chaos Effect series, along with the planned animated show and some unreleased figures, were cancelled due to the Chaos Effect series generally selling poorly in the market, especially when compared to the previous Jurassic Park toy series. And we wouldn't get that Jurassic Park animated show or any Jurassic Park show for that matter until 2020. But despite this, Kenner was still doing an amazing job with the figures, and a few years later, it was confirmed that a third film was eventually coming. And while people were getting excited to see more epic dinosaur action on the big screen, they also waited to see what kind of new and exciting toys Kenner would make for the upcoming. Well, shit. Kenner was suddenly and tragically shut down back in 2000, but at the time it was a very confusing turn of events, and it still somewhat is to this day, as Kenner seemed to have been doing fine financially. So why was it shut down? In order to understand as to what and why this happened, we have to look closer at Kenner's history and timeline. And as it turns out, quite a bit led to Kenner's shutdown. Long story short, the first thing that happened leading up to the shutdown of Kenner was Kenner being bought by Tonka back in 1987. Then, roughly 2 years before Jurassic Park was released, Tonka themselves were bought by another well-known toy company. Hasbro. Yeah, we'll deal with you when we get there. Anyways, after going through these acquisitions, Kenner was essentially turned into a small division of Hasbro, and unfortunately, after 9 years or so, Hasbro decided to behead Kenner by closing down the headquarters, and in turn shut down the Kenner division. I really wasn't able to find a reason as to why Hasbro did this. As I mentioned earlier, Kenner seemed to have been doing financially well, and I wasn't able to find any information online that suggested otherwise. So yeah, since Kenner basically got murdered before Jurassic Park 3 could be released, another company had to take on the challenge of making toys for Jurassic Park's third installment. And naturally, due to Hasbro technically having owned Kenner, they inherited the rights to certain licenses after the shutdown, including the rights to the Jurassic Park license. So Hasbro took up the task to make toys just in time for the upcoming film. However, this partnership with Hasbro unfortunately marked the beginning of a dark age for Jurassic Park toys. When 2001 rolled around, Jurassic Park 3 was released in theaters, along with Hasbro's Jurassic Park 3 toy series in retail stores. Jurassic Park 3 wasn't even close to being as well received critically or financially compared to its predecessors. And just like the film itself, the new toys that came along with the film were not very well received. Or at least when compared to the success of the previous toy series. This was due to the fact that Hasbro mostly strayed away from remaking Kenner-style toys, which resulted in these figures having a noticeable general decrease in quality. The sculpts were fine, the action features and mechanics were alright, but instead of being made of the hard rubber or plastic that Kenner used, they were made up of a cheap plastic. Basically, the new Jurassic Park 3 Hasbro toys were an overall downgrade from the Kenner toys, and it wasn't what fans really expected, so they were understandably disappointed. Despite these downgrades, these figures were still generally competent, and hey, a few of the figures in the series seem decent enough. I myself would love to own Hasbro's Jurassic Park 3 posable Spinosaurus. If you are a friend of mine, you would already know this, but I love the Spinosaurus. I don't care if it's scientifically accurate or not. If it's a Spinosaurus figure and it looks nice, I'm getting it. If I can afford it, of course. Because I love every version of this oversized crocodilian swan. Except you. You're okay, I guess. Also, fun fact, the Jurassic Park 3 posable Spinosaurus is one of the few figures in the series that still somewhat resemble the Kenner figures, being made up of a decent rubber material, showing that Hasbro didn't completely stray away from the effective formula of its predecessor. At least not yet. That aside, while the Jurassic Park 3 toy series wasn't awful, it was still considered the worst Jurassic Park toy series at the time, and it would stay that way for a while, but unfortunately it wouldn't hold the title of the worst Jurassic Park toy series forever. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where things would take a turn for the worst. Oh shit, I almost forgot. Now, before we get to Jurassic World, I need to mention that in between Jurassic Park 3 and Jurassic World's release, Hasbro released a Toys R Us exclusive series of Jurassic Park figures that featured repainted molds from previous Jurassic Park toy series, along with newly sculpted figures. Even though this series didn't last that long, these figures were decent enough to be their own separate thing without having to rely on a movie or other form of media to market them. But due to this toy series is actually somewhat obscure, even in the Jurassic Park community, and it really isn't mentioned all that much when talking about Jurassic Park toys. I'm not going to bring up this toy series a whole lot throughout the rest of the video, but I wanted to quickly mention it because this series is still a part of Jurassic Park's toy history. And another reason for why I wanted to mention this series is to prove something I'm going to bring up later regarding Hasbro. This series of toys and its assortment seem pretty decent, and I would even argue that it's better than the Jurassic Park 3 series. This toy series shows that, despite not being able to reach the same level of quality that Kenner achieved, Hasbro did indeed have the potential to make good Jurassic Park toys. Unfortunately, that wouldn't turn out to be the case for much longer.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Fast forward to 2015, and after a 14-year-long hiatus, the Jurassic Park franchise came back with a bang. A fourth installment that would start a new trilogy of films that would pick up from where the original Jurassic Park trilogy left off, Jurassic World. And when it was released, Jurassic World dominated the box office charts just like its first predecessor, albeit on a much bigger scale, as it ended up being one of the highest grossing films of all time by the end of its run. So of course, making toys for dinosaurs as kids to play with was a no-brainer. So Hasbro created their Jurassic World toy series before the film was released, and then these figures were released alongside the film. And everyone, expecting great quality, went to stores and checked these new figures out. I mean, these figures were again being produced by Hasbro, literally one of the biggest toy companies on Earth. And sure, even though their attempts at Jurassic Park figures weren't as good as the figures produced by Kenner, most of the figures they previously produced were at least competent, and at best, almost as good as the Kenner figures. Besides, Hasbro has proven themselves to be a great toy company in the past, and they've produced tons of quality toys before, such as the Transformers figures and the Marvel Legends figures. And they probably learned from their past experiences making the Jurassic Park figures, considering their general quality seemed to be improving based on what their Toys R Us exclusive series showed us. There's absolutely no way they could screw up these.
What the fuck is that?
The figures in the Jurassic World series produced by Hasbro are some of, if not the worst Jurassic Park figures ever made. Most of these figures had really bad sculpts. A lot of them looked ugly as hell, and the weird poses and proportions a lot of the figures had resulted in them not even being able to stand up properly. The action features and mechanics were very gimmicky and generally mediocre. And the straw that broke the beaver's back was the fact that these figures were made of cheap dollar store materials, giving them the durability of a fucking twig. I'm not even joking.
And there you go, so his head sort of comes out. And then if you sort of tilt the tail, I haven't got the exact motion down. Have I just broken it? What am I supposed to be doing here? It feels like very, very flimsy plastic. I'm not gonna lie, it feels like very flimsy plastic. I'm, like, sometimes his head moves. I mean, I can make his head come out by pulling it down, up and down. That's quite an easy thing to do. But it looks like you can tilt his head.
Yet despite all of this, the most irritating thing is the fact that Hasbro is one of, if not the biggest toy company on this planet. That means that they could have easily made figures that would have been so much better than what we got. Something on par with or maybe even better than their Toys R Us exclusive series. But that clearly wasn't the case. While Hasbro never gave an official reason as to why there was such a noticeable downgrade in quality in their Jurassic World figures, especially when compared to most of their other products at the time, as it turned out, according to some sources online, Hasbro intentionally downgraded their usual quality standards when making these figures. This was allegedly done because Hasbro expected Jurassic World to flop at the box office, since they didn't have a very good time with Jurassic Park 3 back in 2001. Which I guess is a little bit understandable from a business perspective, considering the Jurassic Park 3 series didn't sell very well. So they cut corners in order to save as much money as possible to prepare for what they thought was going to be a failure. However, as you probably figured out by now, that decision turned out to be one of Hasbro's biggest mistakes ever in terms of missed opportunities. Congratulations, Hasbro, you played yourself. And in the process, fucked all of us and the Jurassic Park franchise over in the ass. After very severe backlash from the Jurassic Park community, relatively poor sales, because let's be real here, not even dumbass kids would want to play with this shit, and Hasbro being unable to agree on renewal terms with Universal, Universal proceeded to revoke Hasbro's rights to the Jurassic Park license to make Jurassic World toys, causing Hasbro to reel its big ugly head back in the shadows and cancel their Jurassic World toy series. Hasbro was actually planning to release more figures in a last-minute attempt to cash in on Jurassic World's unexpected success, including a whole line of quote-unquote hybrid figures, in which some figures would be based on designs from Jurassic World the game, a mobile game released by Ludi at the time, and some of these figures were released in stores. But nobody even cared anymore. It was too late at that point, and these figures didn't look any better than the garbage that was initially released anyway. After Universal understandably revoked the rights to the Jurassic Park license, especially after seeing the failure of the long steamy trail of disappointing shit that Hasbro left behind, everyone was left wondering what toy company was going to be taking up the responsibility of making Jurassic World toys, considering a sequel to Jurassic World was confirmed to be in the works, that being Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And so we waited ever so patiently for news regarding who would make the figures for Fallen Kingdom. Except it turned out that we didn't have to wait, because as it turned out, as soon as Universal officially revoked the rights to the Jurassic Park license from Hasbro, they immediately turned around and, in a big unintentional fuck you move, gave the rights to the Jurassic Park license to Hasbro's biggest rival, Mattel.
Baby! That's what I've been waiting for! That's what it's all about! Woo!
Who were apparently trying to obtain the rights to the license for quite a while at that point, and they finally got a hold of it. After it was revealed that Mattel was going to be making figures for Fallen Kingdom, many people began wondering if Mattel would do any better than Hasbro when it came to making the Jurassic World toys. And we all watched in anticipation as the countdown began to Fallen Kingdom's release. And it was announced that Mattel's Jurassic World toys would soon stomp onto shelves in the late spring of 2018. Eventually, Fallen Kingdom was released in theaters, and it smashed the box office again, but it was very divisive this time around, as it had a lot of mixed opinions on it. Some people liked it, and some people hated it. However, when it came to the figures that were released alongside the film, it was a very different story.
These figures are good!
As most people ended up loving Mattel's new figures. Mattel had finally served the Jurassic Park franchise its very well-deserved justice, and they went above and beyond in making these figures. Their figures had the best sculpts out of all the previous toy series. The action features and mechanics were great, and even though plastic was still generally being used to make these figures, the plastic in question was leagues more sturdy and durable than whatever the hell Hasbro used, so it was more than acceptable. Mattel did such a good job with these figures that Universal let them keep the rights to the Jurassic Park license to make toys beyond the initial Fallen Kingdom line to expand their Jurassic World toy series. Hell, in the Jurassic Park community, there was even a debate as to who was the best when it came to making the Jurassic Park figures, Mattel or Kenner. After Fallen Kingdom, Mattel proceeded to make more and more toys with different lines within its series, making toys on many different unique, obscure, and even recently discovered dinosaurs, such as Saiya's Mikirorome. However the fuck you say that, I don't know. Even today, Mattel is still making figures for the Jurassic Park franchise, and they're currently making toys for Jurassic World Dominion, which is very epic emoji, but I'm not going to talk about that line in this video. I want to wait until the whole line and its figures have been fully released and completed, as well as allow a little bit of time to pass by after the fact, so that'll have to be a video for another day. Finally, we're done with history class. That was longer than I anticipated. Alright, now so far, throughout Mattel's entire Jurassic World toy series, there are currently 5 similarly formatted yet uniquely distinct complete lines. Fallen Kingdom, Dino Rivals, Primal Attack, Camp Cretaceous, and Dino Escape. And today, I'm going to compare all of these lines to see if and how Mattel has kept its quality consistent throughout the past 3.5 years.